What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I figured since we're into the final few days of the season that it's time to take a look back at some of the most insane battles and craziest teams that have featured on this channel this season, and I've compiled over an hour's worth of gameplay. Each battle featured is from a different video featuring a completely different team, so if you're someone that's relatively new to the channel, let this be a teaser of what's to come next season, and for anyone that is a regular viewer and has seen most of my battles this season, well, I'm sure you're going to enjoy being reminded of some of these absolutely iconic battles. Now, before we get into the compilation, I have an important announcement that in the very first week of the new GBL season, we will be getting the Go Battle Week with all 3 leagues available, which means, of course, that I will be hosting the Battle of Spies, and due to popular demand, the Great League Classic Edition will be making a return. The competition will actually go live as soon as the new season begins, so you won't have to wait until Thursday when the Go Battle Week starts. Obviously, I'll be making a community post about it very soon, giving out more details, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What has been your favorite video that I've uploaded this season? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the compilation now. Alright, to go into the first battle, leading Linoon into Greninja. So, of course, not amazing for my team. They're going to resist the fast move damage here, but I do have access to grass coverage on all 3 Pokemon. The opponent gonna fire off the Hydro Cannon. Linoon is bulky enough to tank a Hydro Cannon. Of course, my backline gonna take super effective damage there. So, of course, force to no-shield that first charge move. They shield a Swift Bait. So, I'm hoping maybe the opponent doesn't know the coverage here. So, this time, full send in the Grass Knot. Grass Knot is unfortunately shielded. I'm not sure if they could fully farm me down before I reach another Grass Knot, so I'm actually going to swap into my Soul Rock. The opponent gonna fire off a Night Slash before swapping into a Gastrodon, and of course, we've got access to Solar Beam. We are full sending it. Solar Beam, double super effective, easily gets the one shot there. The opponent comes back in with Greninja, and unfortunately, they will outpace me to the next charge attack. The opponent fires off the Night Slash there, and still, we're in a bit of an awkward situation. We're going to come in with the Cast Form, and then I will try and catch the charge move onto my Linoon. The opponent is going to full send a Hydro Cannon. They're going to be 3 away from the next Hydro Cannon, so I overfarm as much as possible here. Cast Form, going for Weather Ball, it gets the KO, and they've got a 3rd Water-type Pokemon in the back, but Cast Form wins CMP here, reaching the Solar Beam. Solar Beam gets the one shot, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Hippopotas into a Talonflame. So, of course, we do have Rock Tomb for coverage. It's quite likely that they will end up shielding the first charge move anyways. And here, I'm actually going to make a mistake. I throw it on alignment. That is very risky for me, because if the opponent doesn't throw it immediately, I'll give away a full Incinerate in for free. I kind of just timed that poorly. That was not my intention. But anyways, we're going to fire off the Rock Tomb. This time around, I do recognize this will be a CMP tie. But again, I am going to throw straight away. And they do just go for another fly there. So, of course, Rock Tomb number 2 coming through. It's going to grab the final shield. I swap into my Salandit, but unfortunately met with a Clodsire. Now, this is what I'm talking about. A ground-type Pokemon, but they've got Poison Sting as the fast move, meaning we actually resist the fast move damage. And you see, Flamethrower does respectable damage there. Embers, they're not really adding up too much, but they do charge energy incredibly fast. So what we're going to do, we're going to fire off another Flamethrower on the CMP tie. Flamethrower just narrowly doesn't quite get the KO there. So the opponent will be firing off the Earthquake. Oh, sorry, never mind. That is a Stone Edge. Stone Edge gets the one shot. They come back in with a Talonflame, but they've only revealed Fly. So I expect this is going to be a full send of the Brave Bird. I'm able to catch it, and now I'm going to look to overfarm. This game is still not over yet. I fire off Gyro Ball. It's resisted, but they're triple debuffed, and let's see what their final Pokemon is. Vroom, do we still have play here? They're going to have a Shadow Piloswine. I wait one turn. I make sure they don't make a catch there. Gyro Ball is enough damage to get the one shot, and I'm triple resisting Poison Sting. I get the Metal Sound farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into next battle. We're going to see Doduo into Macargo. So, this is not a great matchup for me. Once again, I'm going to fire off a one peck, then swap out into Dwebble, and the opponent is going to swap into a Gastrodon. So, of course, Dwebble not going to be too bad in this matchup. Smackdowns are resisted, but I actually grabbed a shield advantage with an X-Scissor, which is huge for me. The opponent's still going to have to full send a Water Pulse, as Body Slam is resisted damage. Dwebble able to tank that. Not super comfortably, but get off another X-Scissor Scissor as well, and that potentially puts them into range where I can farm them down with the Doduo. At this point, I will no shield. I should live a Water Pulse, but you're going to see Water Pulse does huge damage there, so I'm forced to throw straight away. I need them to just let this move go through, and the opponent does exactly that. Now, we've got Gastrodon out of the way. Hopefully, that means Geodude can sweep in the end game, but they are going to go for a debuff first, firing off the Rock Tomb. I'm going to go straight for Rock Slide as I can throw this before they do reach a second Rock Tomb. Rock Slide is going to grab the final shield, and at this point, I don't know what they've got in the back. I am just going to shield anyways, and they're going to have a Dugong, so of course, they're going to have access to Drill Run here. This is not ideal, but we can go for Rock Tomb here. I can throw one Volt Switch, wait 2 turns, and swap and catch the charge move onto Doduo. They fire off the Drill Run, and now all I need to do is farm up, throw on the CMP tie. Geodude going to be winning CMP up against the Dugong here. Rock Slide gets the KO, and now all I need to do is reach one more charge move. Could have gone for the Rock Slide, but we have energy for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle in Trumbeak into Corviknight, and I have to say, with this team, for some reason, I saw Corviknight on like literally half the teams that I was facing in the lead, but the opponent's going to swap out. They try to catch a flying type move, and as a result, we can full send the return, dealing huge damage, and that is the only reason I'm running a Purified Trumbeak for that big damage, stat damage as well from return. Of course, Trumbeak also learns the Rock Blast for coverage, but like I mentioned in the intro, Rock Blast just isn't useful at all. So this point, we've grabbed the shield, we've got them fairly low, we can come in, we can actually peg farm down with that Chatot, and the opponent is going to come back in with the Corviknight. The opponent going to go for an Air Cutter, doesn't do too much damage, but unfortunately they do get that boost right off the bat. Now technically, I can still tank this, so I'm gonna no shield, I'm gonna fire off the Nightshade here, and then I will be swapping into my 2 cannon, and the opponent is going to choose to stay in with the Corviknight. Now at this point, I am gonna no shield. I believe in some of these battles, I hadn't realized that Rock Blast was so bad, so I do fire off the Rock Blast, despite the fact that Drill Peck, despite being resisted, would do marginally more damage. In this case, it's not really going to matter too much, as a second charge move is required anyways. So yeah, I'm going to overfarm ever so slightly. You could argue, of course, if I go for Drill Peck here, if the opponent tries to make a catch, then of course Drill Peck typically going to do more damage anyways, but their final Pokemon is going to be a Credilli. Now I need to live the next acid here. We're firing off the first Drill Peck. It does big damage, and we are just barely able to reach a second Drill Peck. Drill Peck gets the KO from that range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Zygarde in the lead, so this is a great matchup for us, of course. I'm going to outpace him to the first charge move and Glaciate. Going to hit for double super effective damage. That does huge damage there. The opponent going to fire for charge move. Worst case scenario is a Crunch, which just not going to do too much damage, but they do swap into a Shadow Charizard. So this one, I'm going to swap, try to catch an Air Cutter, which I'm able to do so. Zekrom is going to resist all the charge moves. However, of course, their Dragon Breath is super effective, whilst mine is just neutral. They will be able to shield once and then fully farm me down, which is not ideal. But Reshiram can, of course, double resist a Blast Burn, so we're going to force them to go for Air Cutters. They haven't got a boost yet, which is okay for me, so I'm going to no-shield the first move. They do not get a boost once again, which is actually great for me. If they do get a boost here, it could be quite awkward, but again, they get no boost, but unfortunately, they do reach a last-second charge move, so that is not ideal. They swap back into their Zygarde just to be fully farmed down, and the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be Empoleon. So at this point, I'm going to fire off that Fusion Flare. Fusion Flare going to be no-shielded. It's actually a Shadow Empoleon. Now I'm firing off the Crunch, looking for a debuff. Crunch does actually get the debuff there, but I still can't settle for a Glaciate. I have to full send a Draco Meteor, which I'm able to do there. They come back in, they Dragon Breath farm me down, but I'm also able to Dragon Breath farm down the Shadow Charizard, living once again with 1 HP and a Dream, and I'm able to take that game. Into the next battle, we're going to see Galarian Moltres into Pawniard. So Pawniard is one of the more awkward lead matchups for me, and actually the entire team can only hit for resisted damage into Pawniard, but these Sucker Punches do add up over time. Of course, they've got non-stab Fury Cutters and X-Scissors, so whilst it is neutral damage here, it's not doing too much damage. I don't need to use a shield, and of course, my two back Pokemon are going to take super effective damage from the bug typing, so I will be shielding this next move, as now I can fire off another Fly. Now, Fly won't quite get the KO from this range, but but the opponent is going to no shield. They swap into Shadow Sableye. I come in with my Shadow Hydreigon. Now, I had to make a call here. Were they going to have a Claydol or a Mandibuzz in the back? Those are like the two most likely options. I call that's going to be a Mandibuzz in the back, so I'm going to shield here. I'm going to be slightly outpaced to the next charge move. Doesn't matter. I will resist the Foul Play. Foul Play does still do quite a lot of damage there, but I can reach a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing gets the KO, but my call was wrong. They've got Claydol in the back. I've now got my Shadow Tyranitar, but I'm taking no damage whatsoever. The opponent tries to make the catch there, but I predict that catch. I swap into Tyranitar, and this game should be over. The opponent fires off a Rock Tomb bait there for some reason. Don't really understand that play whatsoever, but we can actually reach a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing gets the KO, but even if I didn't get to that charge move, of course, Moltres did have a Brave Bird banked. So, GG's up on that into next battle. I can see Mega Lucario into a Primal Groudon. So I have two better answers here. Of course, Florges is going to double resist the Dragon Tail damage and actually outpace them to the first charge route as well, whilst Chilling Water is also going to hit for double super effective, doing nearly half their HP. Now, the opponent is going to bank some energy, swap into Zacian. A bit interesting there that they would allow the Chilling Water to land, but either way, Chilling Water is going to connect up against a Zacian as well. At this point, even with that debuff, Behemoth Blade is still easily going to one-shot us, so we can come back in with Lucario. I'm happy to shield once and then commit to a full farm down, assuming they do go for a close combat, which they do, but then they swap out back into Groudon. We can come in with the Gyarados. Of course, Fire Punch is resisted, Precipice Blades is double resisted. Unless they're running something like Solar Beam, we can completely wall the energy here, but I'm going to fire off that Octail straight away, get rid of that Primal Groudon, and let's see what they want to do. They're unfortunately going to come in with a hard wall to Gyarados in the form of Primarina. Everything we throw here is going to be resisted. We're going to go for an Octail, not going to do much damage, but so far Lucario has not revealed its secondary charge move. I go for a Power Punch bait, and that is huge for me as the opponent ends up shielding there. I'm now going to shield a Hydro Cannon. The opponent swaps back into Zacian, but I'm boosted. I can go for a full farm down, coming out with so much loaded energy. And despite the fact that I am completely walled in terms of the damage, I've only got fighting type moves. It doesn't matter. Aura Sphere does huge damage once it's boosted. One more Force Palm, gets that farm down, and I'm able to take that game. And unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, I'm going to see a Galarian Corsola in the lead. We say swap into Rufflet, and we can go straight for Fly. Fly is going to connect the first time around, and you can see we put them into the other health range before they reach an Ice Beam. So that means I should be able to get the KO with the next Fly and the resulting peck damage. So at this point, we're going to go for that Fly. Fly number 2 is going to grab that first shield from the opponent, and we can go for a CMP tie here with our third Fly. Fly number 3 is actually going to be double shielded by the opponent. So at this point, I'm happy to let the Rufflet go down. We can come back in with our Fearow instead, look to overfarm quite a bit, go for 7 pecks before firing off a Drill Peck, and Drill Peck, of course, going to get the KO here. So Drill Peck takes out Azumarill. They're going to come in with a Ferrothorn, and I'm going to look to try and catch a resisted Thunder onto my Shadow Groudon. Has this worked out for me? Yes! Thunder, double resisted actually. It hardly does any damage. And now I'm also able to reach a Precipice Blades, but I'm going to go for a cheeky undercharge there, which means now I can let the Shadow Groudon go down. We can come back in, get the farm down with the Fearow. They actually go for a Power Gem there for some reason. I guess it doesn't really matter at this point, and I'm able to take that game. But GG's up on that. Into next battle, we're going to see a Salazzle into Magcargo. We're swapping straight away into Shadow Latias. The opponent is going to choose to stay in. I play it quite risky here. I throw on CMP, but the opponent does throw straight away, and actually they don't respect the damage there. Once again, probably just forgetting about this move update. There's quite a lot of move updates that maybe people will forget about, so unfortunately for them, that is not ideal for them, as now we go for another Aura Sphere, and we can go for yet another Aura Sphere up against the Blastoise. Aura Sphere going to grab the final shield from the opponent. They are over farming massively. They will fire off the charge move now. Hydro Cannon, resisted damage from that range, does get the KO. I mean, I guess it kind of made sense to overfarm that much, because if they threw earlier, Hydro Cannon wouldn't have taken us out. They then full sent a Skull Bash. I'm now going to overfarm here, fire off the Aura Sphere from this range. Despite boosting up the defense, it takes them out there. And then final Pokemon, a Shadow Empoleon. We can once again go for yet another Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere gets the one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to put there into the next battle. You can see Greninja in the lead. So this is an okay matchup for me, but I do have two better answers. So I'm actually going to swap out Catch, either a Hydro Cannon or a Night Slash. Resisted onto Hydreigon. The opponent, unfortunately, very much hard punishes me with a Wigglytuff, but that's okay. We do have Magneton in the back, so we can come in with that Magneton. They will outpace me to the first charge move. I do resist everything, and because Charm does less damage this season, I'm actually happy to no shield there, whereas previous seasons, I probably would have been forced to shield that. But anyways, we're going to fire off the Magnet Bomb. Magnet Bomb is going to be shielded by the opponent, and we do reach a second Magnet Bomb. So at this point, Magnet Bomb going to be double shielded. We can come back in with that Dodrio, go for the snipe with the Drill Peck before they can debuff me. Drill Peck gets the KO from that range. We've got a 2-shield advantage. They come back in with Greninja, and of course, they will outpace me to that next charge move. I believe they did full send a Hydro Cannon last time. Either way, I'm going to overfarm just slightly. I might as well go for Trailblaze there. Permanently boost up my attack here. Trailblaze gets the KO, and once again, they've got Togekiss in the back. We can go straight for a boosted Drill Peck. Drill Peck does big damage. The opponent tries to commit to a farm down. They're not able to get it, and as a result, I'm able to take that game. Triple Shadow Dark types. We're leading into a Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Now, Absol will outpace basically everything apart from this Pokemon, unfortunately. So the opponent will be firing off that Weather Ball straight away. I'm going to go for one more Snarl, fire off a Brutal Swing, go for one more Snarl, and then I will actually look to catch the next Weather Ball onto my Shadow Sharpedo. But not only that, I get a Waterfall through as I make the swap there, which is going to do big damage. We don't see exactly how much damage it did, but they come in with a Shadow Steelix on Thunderfang. We're going to come in with the Weaver, of course. I'm not going to have too much play up against that Ninetales. I'm going to no-shield the first move here. I kind of do need to no-shield this, and luckily for me, it is just a Psychic Fangs bait. Now here, I'm going to go straight for the Avalanche. I don't expect a shield. Avalanche gets the KO there. I swap back into my Absol, and because I did have a one-turn swap there, I fire off 2 Snarls, and then go for a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing grabs the final shield. The opponent recognizing they can't quite farm down, so they swap, they make the catch, but they catch onto Shadow for Alligator, and that is huge for me. We put them into range where potentially, especially if they throw on bad timing here, I can get a full Snarl farmed out, and not only will I have an Avalanche, I've got a Focus Blast loaded. So you know what, we might as well full send it. Avalanche would have got the KO, but Focus Blast is much more satisfying, and I'm able to take that game. So going into the first battle, leading Shiny Shadow Venusaur into Talonflame. Of course, this is not a great matchup for me. I'm going to go for one Vine Whip, swap into my Sableye. Unfortunately, met with a Florges. Now, the opponent doesn't know I'm running Drain Punch here, so I'm going to go for the bait. And the opponent actually no shields, which I thought was really surprising. I'm now firing off Foul Play. Foul Play also resisted, but it does substantially more damage there. The opponent is still going to be forced to throw. Boosting up my defense there does mean that the opponent cannot commit to a full farm down. However, it still doesn't really help me out that much. Venusaur can come in, completely all the energy, unless they were running Psychic, which would be very unlikely, but they do reach yet another charge move. So of course, Venusaur, I have to sponge the damage. I'm now swapping out straight away into Marowak, and unfortunately just being triple hard countered so far, but Shadow Alola Marowak hits very hard. Hex does decent damage. We drop the defense there with the Shadow Bone, and now we actually have some play. Of course, I'm going to shield the Hydro Cannon. I'm going to look to throw on CMP here, and of course, the opponent will be looking to shield, but I recognize the opponent's Switch Clock will be coming up after they fire off this Hydro Cannon, so I feel like they will go for the combo play, meaning I'm also going to swap out, throw the charge move straight away. Sludge able to win CMP up against the Talonflame, dealing big damage in the process, and even if the opponent undercharges here, Fly probably still gets the KO anyways. We can get a full Hex farm down, and I can actually just commit to a full farm down up against the Blastoise as well, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Excadrill into a Shadow Kanto Marowak. Of course, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into my Swoobat, and the opponent going to bank a ton of energy before hard punishing me with a Corviknight. However, despite the fact that the opponent is going to completely wall the energy, Swoobat just does not care. Here I'm going to go for back-to-back Psychic Fangs. You can see, not really dealing that much damage so far, but these Confusions are now absolutely shredding through their HP. They full send a payback. I farm up to back-to-back Psychic Fangs here. Now the opponents, if they want to maintain alignment, they are going to have to double shield as we're already at back-to-back once again. So Psychic Fangs, number 4 is going to grab the final shield. We swap into Rufflet and we actually get a full peck farm down. We've now got a shield advantage. Of course, I did just give up switch advantage, but I'm still incredibly healthy on that Swoobat. We're going to go for a Rock Tomb here, debuff the opponent's attack stat. This should allow the Rufflet to tank an Ice Beam. It's not going to be super comfortable, but we do tank it nonetheless. And now my switch clock is coming up very soon. Now Fly, not going to get the KO. I expect the opponent to swap out straight away, but the opponent, in committing to a farm down here, puts them into range where a single confusion will get the KO. So it doesn't matter the opponent has back-to-back charge moves. I can safely shield. They go for a Bone Club bait. Doesn't really make a difference. We get the confusion farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there into next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen into a Gastrodon. So, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping and unfortunately met with a Togekiss. However, we are ahead on energy. And of course, we don't expect any fairy type moves from the opponent. Of course, Pecs are hitting for neutral damage. They're doing slightly more damage than we're doing to them just because we are very attack weighted. However, we might still reach back-to-back Drill Pecks here. We are going to go for the first one. Drill Peck is actually going to grab the final shield. So at this point, you know what? I'm happy to take that shield advantage. I've put them into range where 5 more pecks from the Shadow Honchko gets the perfect farm down there, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent's waiting out the switch clock. They're going to come in with a Charizard. I'm going to overfarm just slightly. Fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse gets the one shot. And we've already seen in the previous battle, we can very comfortably nuke a Gastrodon with the Brave Bird. Going to use my final shield here. Going to go straight for that Brave Bird. I do not need to overfarm from this range. Brave Bird gets that one shot. And I'm able to take that game. But GG's up over there into the next battle. We're going to see a Corviknight in the lead. So this is okay here. Of course, we are taking super effective damage from their fast moves. And if they farm up to a payback, that could be very tricky for me. But I'm going to shield this. The opponent is going to go ahead and bait with an Air Cutter. So I'm going to swap out. I'm actually able to catch the next Air Cutter onto my Jirachi, which is very nice. Air Cutter, of course, is resistant damage. And now they swap into Steelix. And this is fine with me. We've got Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere is going to grab the final shield there. And the opponent is going to continue to farm, so we can go for a second Aura Sphere here. Aura Sphere is going to do decent damage into the Steelix, and at this point they have to full send an Earthquake, so I'm going to no shield. They do full send it, but now we can come in with Celebi here. Of course, Celebi is going to resist the Earthquake. They might be on Crunch, however, I feel like it's unlikely, but either way, I'm actually not going to test that theory. Instead, we're just going straight for the Aura Sphere. We get the KO. They come back in with the Corviknight. I'm going to swap out. I'm able to catch another Air Cutter, this time onto Victini. It's not going to do too much damage. They do get the attack boost, but they swap out into their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Lapras. So I'm going to go straight for the Psyshock. Psyshock does decent damage there. They will unfortunately farm me down before I reach back-to-back charge moves. So we full send the V-Create. We get the KO. We debuff our defense as well. And at this point, we can actually tank an Air Cutter. So I'm going to no-shield the first move, just in case they boost. And the opponent does boost, but they recognize they needed to grab the shield there, and so they just concede the match. Alright, heading into the first battle, leading Druddigon into Togekiss. So obviously not a great matchup for me, but in the end game, potentially, if all shields are down, Rock Tomb could put in some work. Anyways, I'm going to say swap into Shadow Girafarig. Depending on what I saw in the lead, I would swap into different Pokemon. Here they come in with a Belly Bolt. I'm going straight for Psychic Fangs here. Psychic Fangs, not going to do too much damage, but if the opponent commits to a farm down, they might need to shield this, as Trailblaze does huge damage, and the opponent, recognizing one confusion now, would get the KO. They're forced to use their energy, which means now we can come in with that Druddigon and go for a full Dragon Tail farm down. Now, obviously, there were a ton of move updates this season, so potentially the opponent doesn't remember about Rock Tomb on Druddigon. So Rock Tomb, gotta be no-shielded. It does big damage, but unfortunately, they do have a Corviknight in the back now. Obviously, the opponent doesn't know my moveset just yet. I did go straight for Psyshock, hoping they might think it's like a Thunder Punch or a Fire Punch, but unfortunately for me, that backfires massively. I'm now going to shield as they full send the payback, and at this point, we are now overfarming. I'm still not quite at the energy for a Focus Blast, but potentially I will grab a shield, and I do exactly that. Now, the opponent banks energy. They swap back into Togekiss, but this is fine with me. This is not a Dazzling Gleam. I'm able to tank it, and not only that, I come out with a Rock Tomb loaded. The opponent looks like they're throwing on CMP here. Rock Tomb is going to grab the shield from the Corviknight, and of course, I debuff their attack. Air Cutter does not boost up their attack, and Shadow Hypno is actually fairly bulky here. They're debuffed. Payback does not get the KO, and now Shadow Hypno able to reach a Focus Blast at the last second. Focus Blast gets the KO up against Corviknight, and I'm able to take that game. I'm setting into the first battle, leading Decidueye into Carbink. So, of course, this is definitely where we want to see it for this team. We're going to be weak to the Fairy typing, but the Rock typing is resisted. The opponent safe swaps into Clodsire, maybe looking to catch a resisted Charge or maybe a neutral Trailblaze. But either way, we're going to swap. Shield the first move here. Unfortunately, swapping out slightly too slow to get off the Icy Wind first. But we can now fire off an Icy Wind. And actually, I'm going to outpace them to the next Charge move as well. So we can double debuff them here, which means even though Icy Wind won't quite get the KO, I can now comfortably tank an Earthquake. So I'm going to no-shield this. The opponent is going to swap back into Carbink, so I'm not going to allow them to farm me down there. Instead, we're going to come in with the Decidueye, fire off one Trailblaze, fire off a second Trailblaze before they can reach a Moonblast. They're going to no-shield once again, saving both their shields for their final Pokemon. But at this point, I'm double boosted. I can now go for a very aggressive Psycho Cut farm down, coming out with a ton of energy. And let's see what they come in with. The opponent's thinking about what to do. They come in with a Corviknight. So, of course, Corviknight gonna hit for double super effective damage with an Air Cutter. That will easily get the one shot from this range up against my Decidueye, but we're so loaded. Aura Spheres grab both shields from the opponent. At this point, I might as well just force him to throw. The opponent does overfarm just a little bit there. Air Cutter also gonna get the boost, which means a single payback will easily take out my Typhlosion. So I do have to be wary of that. I'm gonna swap out there, and I'm actually able to make the catch. But did they full send? They did. They full send the payback, and now we've got to watch out for a catch attempt from the opponent. I'm able to hold on to the energy. We've got back-to-back wild charges, but actually just a single wild charge will get the KO up against Corviknight, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Dhelmise into Talonflame. Of course, not a great matchup. Gonna be safe swapping into Lycanroc, and straight away able to bait out a Gastrodon, and now I'm going straight for Trailblaze here. Do they know about the grass type coverage? They absolutely do not. It gets the one shot. We flip switch advantage, and not only that, they come in with a Shadow Dusclops. I've boosted up my Sucker Punch damage. Drill Run gets the one shot. The opponent saving both shields for their Talonflame, but that's just not going to work out for them. We've got one of the hardest answers in the form of a Alolan Geodude. I'm going to no-shield. It's a Flame Charge. It doesn't do much damage, and so the opponent just concedes the match. Alright, so going into the first battle, leading Shadow Torterra into a Fearow. So this is obviously not great for me whatsoever. Going to be safe swapping into Torkoal, and I can actually outpace them to a Flame Wheel before they do reach a potential Drill Run, which would hit for super effective damage. So we grab a shield here. I'm also going to match shields as the opponent does fire off a bait with the Drill Peck before swapping into Furret. So at this point, I'm going to no-shield the first charge move. Swift, not going to do too much damage here. Torkoal is fairly bulky. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back charge moves, and then instead of throwing both of these, I'm actually going to connect with the first one, then swap back into Shadow Torterra, realizing I can sponge a Swift and then commit to a full Mudslap farm down. Hopefully get to the farm down before they do reach a second charge move, and I'm able to do exactly that. And not only that, we've got the Stone Edge loaded. Stone Edge is not respected by the opponent, and despite the fact that Torterra had like 6 HP remaining, we get off insane damage with those Mudslaps. It's game over, the opponent recognizing it, and so they just concede the match. Let's go into the first battle, leading Lucario into Shadow Drapion. Now, I do want to note, I'm running Bullet Punch for most of these battles, but I did start running Force Palm initially, and you're going to see those battles at the end of this video, but I did find a few matchups where Bullet Punch would have been a lot better for me, specifically up against Pokemon like the Galarian Rapidash or the Hatterene, and as well a few Pokemon that do, of course, resist Force Palm. But anyways, we're going to shield the Aquatail here. This is a great matchup for me, but they might be weak to Lucario in the back. So I'm going to swap out. Also, I'm running an ABB style team. I'm running low kicks here to bait out Pokemon like the Shadow Murkrow, where, of course, Pheromosa is going to take double super effective damage from those pecks and will get absolutely torn apart. So I needed to bait it out. We're now going to come in with Lucario, going to shield up the Drill Peck and then commit to a Bullet Punch farm down, just barely getting it, but my Switch Clock is up. We come in with Pheromosa, we get the Bug Bite farm down, and they have a second Dark and Flying type, but luckily for me, it's not Mandibuzz. It's going to be Galarian Moltres, and Close Combat gets that one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to open there into the next battle. I am determined to make Chandelure work, but of course, now we put it back in the lead. We are seeing the water types returning, but this is actually a pretty decent matchup for me because the opponent likely doesn't know I'm on Energy Ball. So we are going to go for the Energy Ball. Are they going to respect the damage? No, it nearly one-shots them. Even better, we get the Incinerate farm down. They now come in with the Mega Gyarados. I swap out straight away. And luckily for me, the opponent swaps into Zacian here. This is fine. My energy was completely resisted up against the Gyarados. Now we've got the exact alignment we want. We can just spam out these Aqua Tails. Aqua Tail number 2, going to, of course, connect once again. I'm going to no-shield this, as the opponent is going to go for a Behemoth Blade, dealing big damage, resisted damage once again, but that's okay. We can farm up to back-to-back Aqua Tails once again. Aqua Tail is going to be caught on the Gyarados. Very nice play there by the opponent, by the way. But we can now come in with that Mega Altaria. We have seen already, though, we do lose the 2-shield scenario, and we are now down a shield. So at this point, I guess we just sponge the energy. Of course, we know that Chandelure does have a bit of residual energy. We can go for Energy Balls to hit for super effective damage. So if I can grab a shield here, then we should be looking okay. But still not the perfect situation. The opponent is going to continue to overfarm. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to get the KO. No, never mind. They do full send a crunch that gets the KO, and I'm going to go for a bait with the Flame Charge. I'm expecting to grab a shield anyway, so Flame Charge does grab the shield here, and now I kind of need the opponent to swap out of this matchup. The opponent fires off the Aqua Tail. They swap, but we get the Incinerate farm down. We didn't quite have the Charge Wave loaded, but now we come out with that Energy Ball loaded. Energy Ball gets the KO up against the Gyarados, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there. Very, very poor from Duraludon. But anyways, we say swap into it this time around, and they don't have a great response. They come in with Miltank. Worst case scenario, they fire off an Ice Beam, but Ice Beam, we can tank that. It's going to be neutral damage here. We are resisting the fast move damage. They go for the Ice Beam, and I'm going to go and throw a Charge Move here. They actually go for an extra rollout, so potentially not even running Body Slam there, which means that is kind of a misplay on my end. Of course, if I committed to a farm down there, we come out with a Dragon Claw loaded to throw into the Talonflame, but either way, we do still have play here. Now, again, I'm going to look to throw on CMP. This time, this was intentional because I need to force the opponent to throw here. If I throw slightly sooner, the opponent might actually commit to a full farm down, whereas now we can swap into our Dartrix eventually. Not quite yet. I actually don't know why I haven't swapped just yet, but we're going to shield up the fly. Now I swap into Dartrix, and I've put them into range where I can Dragon Breath farm them down. They're going to be forced to shield up a Seed Bomb here, which they do, and that is perfect for me. We can come back in with the Shadow Dialga, and I can go for the Dragon Breath farm down before they even land the Incinerate, which means I also live the Volt Switch damage. We reach a last second Draco Meteor, and once again, it gets the one-shot, and I'm able to take that game. So going into the first battle, leading Lurantis into Shadow Charizard. Of course, not a great matchup for me whatsoever. Going to be safe swapping into Shadow Crustle. The opponent is going to bank a ton of energy before swapping into Empoleon. Empoleon completely walls the Shadow Crustle, but Rock Wrecker still does huge damage. They are forced to throw, but they throw perfectly on CMP, winning CMP there. And of course, Hydro Cannon will be taking out my Shadow Crustle. They also overfarm enough to reach a departing Drill Peck here, which is not ideal. I cannot afford to shield this. Instead, I'm going to save my shields for Shadow Rampardos. A single Smackdown, as you've just seen, did over half the remaining HP of that Shadow Charizard, and the opponent, they can go for a Rock Tomb debuff my attack. It does not matter. Shadow Rampardos commits to the full Smackdown farm down. There's nothing Charizard can do, so they just concede the match. Very well earned win there from the opponent. But into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Steelix in the lead. So this is a fine matchup for me. They swap into Carbink. And oh, by the way, this might be the worst team I have ever seen in the Go Battle League. Just in terms of like, what the heck is this? I'm going to give a spoiler right now. The third Pokemon, actually, try and guess what the third Pokemon is for this team before I mention it. Yeah, it's going to be a Bastiodon. So they've got Steelix, Carbink, and Bastiodon on the same team. By the way, I hope this trainer queued into my previous opponent, because their team with the double Mudslap would absolutely destroy this team here. But anyways, we're still in a decent position. We can go straight for an Aura Sphere up against this Bastiodon. Aura Sphere is going to connect. I don't know why they don't shield that. But that's fine with me. They're going to go for a Stone Edge. That's also fine with me. They come back in with the Steelix, and we can fire off an Aura Sphere. Of course, Aura Sphere going to hit for super effective damage. The opponent is finally going to start using their shields, but I can reach another Aura Sphere before they do throw a charge move. So Aura Sphere number 2 going to be no shielded, and that gets them incredibly low. So at this point, of course, the opponent fires off the Breaking Swipe there, gets the KO, but we can come in with Shadow Dragonite. All I need to do is bank a superpower, and then I'm going to swap into Giratina, able to reach a Shadow Ball, and of course, Shadow Ball should be getting the KO here. They might shield, they do shield, but they recognize we've got the move banked on Dragonite, and so I'm able to take that game. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Breloom into Talonflame. So, of course, an awful matchup for me. I'm going to go for one Force Palm, swap out into Ampharos, and unfortunately, completely walled here by a Guzzlord. But the opponent doesn't know my charge moves. Ampharos has access to moves like Dragon Pulse and Focus Blast, so I farm up to a potential Focus Blast. I'm going for Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing grabs a shield from the opponent, as the opponent is going to want to maintain alignment here. Trailblaze, going to be no shield. It doesn't do too much damage there. Well, that's okay with me. I'm going to come back in with the Breloom, but unfortunately, the opponent is going to farm up to a potential Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb going to hit for big damage, so I do end up shielding. Now, I assume they're going to come back in with the Talonflame, so once again, going to fire off one Force Palm, bank a Dynamic Punch, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Water Gun Lantern. Water Gun Lantern seems to have regained popularity this season, especially in recent weeks because it's been showcased by a few content creators like It's Accent and Homesize Henry, but we're in a really good position here. I actually don't need to overfarm whatsoever. Trailblaze already boosted, now I'm double boosted. We get off just one Volt Switch into the Talonflame, but that's all we need. That's going to put them into range where Breloom can come in. Of course, we've only got resisted moves, but I go for 3 Force Palms. I fire off the Dynamic Punch, and Dynamic Punch gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Shadow Dragonair into Dedenne, probably the most obvious core breaker to this team. Of course, they are going to resist all of my fast move damage, actually double resisting it. They also have the opportunity to boost up their defense, which is not going to be ideal for me in the slightest. Now, they actually shield the first charge move, but I'm going to call that their full send in the play rough, which they do. They then swap into Dugong, and I can come in with my Shadow Milotic. Now, they will outpace me to the first charge move. The opponent gonna full send the drill run, but that's fine with me. I'm now going to look to overfarm, and I am full send in the Hyper Beam. This is the only nuke on the team, and Hyper Beam is going to one-shot the Dugong. They come back in with the Dene, but because I overfarmed, I'm able to reach a Surf here. Surf is going to connect. It does big damage, and now I actually come back in with Shadow Dragonair and fire off a Body Slam straight away. The opponent's going to come in with their final Pokemon, a Furret, but that's fine with me. I look to throw on CMP, and the opponent actually ends up throwing straight away, so Body Slam is going to connect, and at this point, this should be game over. The opponent fires off Swift. That does not take us out there, which means they do get slightly extra farm, but it doesn't matter. Gyarados can come in, and it does take one less turn to reach both charge moves for my Shadow Gyarados, meaning I should reach back-to-back Aqua Tails on the CMP tie. I was thinking about committing to a full Dragon Breath farm down, but it doesn't really matter. At this point, we are going to fire off the Aqua Tail. The opponent probably just quit the app completely, and they are going to let that first move go through, and I'm able to take that game. Or in which case, they would have just Powder Snow farmed me down anyways. But GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, we're going to see Charge Bug in the lead this time around. So once again, I am double resisting the fast move damage. They will fire off the X-Scissor, which does respectable damage there, but now I can fire off an Outrage. Outrage coming through, it does huge damage, but again, they've got a Piloswine, so I swap into Dipplin. However, the opponent doesn't throw on the best timing here, giving a full Dragon Tail in for free. I'm now going to go for one Dragon Tail, fire off the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb should be grabbing a shield from the Piloswine, and it does just that. Now, the opponent doesn't throw the next move straight away, instead, looking for a full farm down, which means I grab both shields here, and I do still have my Appleton to potentially catch a charge move. I believe there are 8 Powder Snows, so they are going to throw straight away just blindly. I'm going to shield the first one, and if they throw straight away, I'm able to catch onto the Appleton, but I need something in the back that's incredibly weak to Flapple. Of course, I can outpace them. I don't really know how much to overfarm by, so I do overfarm just slightly. We go for Seed Bomb, it gets the KO, and that overfarm is going to come in clutch as I'm able to outpace Greninja. Greninja, not the bulkiest Pokemon ever. Seed Bomb actually gets the KO from that range, and somehow this team was able to overcome a Piloswine. But GG's up in there into the final battle with this team. We are going to see an awful matchup for me in the lead Talonflame. We're also safe swapping into our Shadow Ninetales. We're going for Weatherball. Weatherball does decent damage there, and we can reach a second Weatherball. Now, Weatherball number 2 won't quite get the KO, but I don't think the opponent can commit to a full Mudslap farm down. So this point, of course, I'm going to let the Bone Club take me out. I'm going to come in with Meowscarada, go for the farm down, and because we threw 1 Leafage first before we swapped out, I'm going for 2 more now, fire off a Night Slash, and I need that damage to land because unfortunately Cast Form can't really deal any damage in this matchup. But since we've now landed a Night Slash, we will eventually put them into range where a single Weatherball will get the KO. Now Weatherball is actually going to be shielded by the Talonflame, and the opponent staying in with that Talonflame, they must be weak to Cast Form in the back. So we're going to shield the fly. I'm going to go for 2, fire off the Weatherball here, and we do have back-to-back charge moves, meaning the opponent has to throw straight away. So we swap into Meowscarada. Was that the correct decision? Fly gets the KO. We come back in with the Cast Form. We're looking to massively overfarm. We eventually fire off the Weatherball. Weatherball gets the KO there, and it absolutely was the right decision as they've got Shadow Abomasnow in the back. Weatherball gets the one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So heading into the battle, Electivire into Shadow Malamar. Of course, I've got Pheromosa in the back, so I do want to eventually try and align it to my Pheromosa, but we might as well just stay in. Full send a Wild Charge here. Wild Charge is going to be shielded. I swap, and oh my gosh, can you see the damage there from those Bug Bites? I'm definitely going to shield this. They fire off the Foul Play, but likewise, a single Incinerate gets the full farm down. What on earth is this battle so far? But it just keeps getting more insane as we get the full Mudslap farm down. Oh my goodness, have you ever seen a battle quite like this in the Go Battle League? I can guarantee not. Either way, we fire off the Mud Bomb here, but unfortunately, their Switch Clock will be coming up very soon. I can't remember how healthy the Malamar is, but I need to farm them down, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen there. They get the farm down, they come out with a Charge Move loaded. I needed to get the farm down there as I needed a Wild Charge to take out for Alligator, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Scizor into Guzzlord. So once again, a bit of an awkward matchup where I am going to resist the fast move damage, but the charge moves are, of course, on my end, going to be resisted as we've got Night Slash and Trailblaze. They swap, trying to snipe with a single Incinerate, but I'm able to swap out, come in with the Shadow Dragonite. I play very risky. I throw on CMP here, but I can win CMP, and also the opponent does let the Thunder Punch go through. They go for a bait there with a Torch Song, and at this point, I'm also going to, once again, look to throw on CMP. Thunder Punch is going to get the KO here, so the opponent does use their final shield. At this point, you know what? I'm going to double shield my Shadow Dragonite. I'm going to maintain alignment here, go for the Dragon Breath farm down, and let's see, the opponent's going to come in with a Clefable. So Clefable, a bit tricky for me. I'm going for Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch, going to do some okay damage there. I'm now going to swap back into Shadow Scizor, go straight for Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to boost up my attack stat, and the opponent stays in here to fire off a charge move. The opponent goes for a Meteor Mash there, rather than a Swift, so potentially Meteor Mash and Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam as the second charge move. We come in with Altaria, and we can just barely outpace them to the charge move there. Just one turn difference between them reaching a Moonblast. They come back in with the Guzzlord, and here I'm able to swap perfectly, catching what I assume to be a Dragon Claw, which would have hit for huge damage up against my Altaria. But now, of course, I can fire off the Sky Attack. Sky Attack doesn't quite get the KO there, but it puts them into Dragon Breath farm down range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Shadow Ember into Diggersby. So, of course, not a great matchup for me, but I can actually stay in initially. I will outpace them to a Blast Burn before they reach a potential Scorching Sands, and that does huge damage. I'm now going to overfarm. I'm able to make a catch onto my Feraligatr, which is ideal. The opponent is going to full send the Scorching Sands before swapping into a second normal type Pokemon, which is quite unfortunate for me as they will come in, of course, with a Furret. Now, I go for Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to grab a shield there. I'm going to come back in with my Shadow Ember. However, I'm actually not that confident that I will be able to tank a Swift, so I will be shielding this, and then I believe there are back-to-back charge moves here, so I'm just going to go straight for Rock Slide. The opponent, if they know their counts here, should be no shielding, but the opponent is going to respect the damage anyways, so at this point I will let Ember go down. Ember actually just barely tanks the Swift, and their final Pokemon is a third normal type Pokemon, but it's going to be Wigglytuff. I can go straight for Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant does big damage and actually actually puts them into perfect Vine Whip farm down range. They come back in with the Furret, and they did just use all their energy, so I can go for 4 Vine Whips, fire off Frenzy Plant number 2, get the KO there, and Shiny Shadow Meganium will be sweeping the entire team here, as of course I can just safely shield up the Fire Punch. I could probably commit to a full fast move farm down at this point, but I'm going to play it super safe. I'm just firing off the Frenzy Plant, we take out the Diggersby, and I'm able to take that game. But of course, very tricky backline for my backline to deal with. Either way, GG's to that trainer into the next battle. I'm going to see a Camerupt in the lead. So very interesting lead matchup here. Of course, they're only taking neutral damage from the Rock Throws. However, I am still resisting the Incinerates, and I recognize I can commit 1 shield and go for a full Rock Throw farm down. But they're going to come in with a Sceptile. Now, of course, Exeggutor going to take double super effective damage from the Fury Cutters, so I don't really want it aligned there, but I will kind of need to swap out here just in case they do have another Pokemon weak to the Sudowoodo in the back, which they do, but unfortunately Trevenant not having much luck here as we see a Shadow Pidgeot on Gust. We are at least able to reach a second Seed Bomb here. This will put them into farm down range, but we have to choose which Pokemon we come in with. Now, the opponent has a lot of energy here. I'm actually going to come in with Exeggutor. If they full send a Brave Bird here, this Confusion might get the KO, and it actually does take them out there. They come in with the Sceptile, unfortunately just barely not able to swap out in time, but Leaf Blade doesn't get the KO there. I'm able to reach a last second Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb takes out the Sceptile, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Steelix into Wigglytuff. So this is definitely where we want to see it for this team. The opponent's going to swap into Oranguru, and I don't have a great response in all honesty. So I'm actually going to stay in initially. I'm going to allow them to fire off a charge move here as the opponent is going to go for a Brutal Swing. And now I'm going for a Breaking Swipe. Now, once again, Breaking Swipe is going to debuff their attack there. Of course, Crunch would have been more optimal for me in that situation, but now we're going to shield as they have actually farmed up quite a lot of energy just in case they full sent something like a Future Sight there. But now we can no shield. Brutal Swing does decent damage, but I have, of course, debuffed their attack, and also I come out with a Dragon Ascent loaded. I'm full sending it. Wigglytuff gets 1 shot from literally full health there, and their final Pokemon is a Claydol. That is literally perfect for me. We're going for Breaking Swipe, debuffing their attack, of course, permanently debuffing them now as they cannot swap out. I can now shield the opponent, also going to go ahead and debuff my attack with a Rock Tomb, which of course is also a 50 energy charge move, but instead of dealing 50 damage like Breaking Swipe does, it deals 80 damage, a lot better, but unfortunately for them, it doesn't really make a difference here, as we're double debuffed. We do actually survive that, we get the Astonished farm down, and I'm able to take that game. Now, into the next battle, GG's to our trainer, by the way. Gonna lead into a bit of a core breaker to the team. Of course, Forretress is going to resist most of the charge moves on the team, aside from Ampharos with that Brutal Swing. So I'm just gonna bank the energy, swap into Ampharos. I didn't typically use Ampharos as a safe swap. However, in this situation, I cannot afford to swap into Girafarig. But we're gonna commit to a massive Volt Switch farm down, coming out with back-to-back Trailblazers. And the opponent's gonna come in with a Carbink, of course, wanting to avoid taking damage from my Donphan. However, we've got back-to-back super effective charge moves. Trailblaze number 2 does even more damage there. We swap into Donphan, but they're going to have a Corviknight in the back. Another Pokemon that completely walls all of the energy on my remaining 2 Pokemon here. But we're going to no-shield the first charge move. The opponent does not get an Air Cutter boost. That is huge for me. I can go straight for Psychic Fangs, and whilst, yes, that is resisted, it doesn't really matter. It's going to drop the defense. They go for Air Cutter, but we tank it once again. Going for a Psychic Fangs now. Psychic Fangs number 2 actually threatens the shield. We swap into Donphan. We get a full Mud Slap farm down, and we come out with 100 energy. Now, of course, Body Slam is resisted. They can no shield 1 here, but with that Mud Slap damage, does that put them into another Body Slam range? We've got back-to-back loaded, so we're going to fire off the third one straight away. Body Slam does not get the KO, but I'm still able to resist it. Mud Slap farming down to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Tangrowth into Shadow Giratina. Not a great lead matchup. I'm going to be safe swapping into Hippopotas, and I'm able to bait out a Bullet Seed Credilli. Now, not the best matchup for me, but I can go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb going to grab a shield advantage from Credilli, and I've debuffed their attack. We might even tank a Grass Knot, and I'm able to do exactly that. Not only that, I can reach another Rock Tomb, and if the opponent commits to a full Bullet Seed farm down, well, I can actually reach a Body Slam before they get the full farm down, and if they've not not been keeping track of the energy. Body Slam is going to force the final shield. That is huge for me. They swap back into Shadow Giratina, and of course, I've got Shadow Electivire with 2 shields, so we're going to come in, shield up the Ancient Power. Fortunately for me, they do not get a boost, and here I'm going to look to throw on CMP. Ice Punch coming through. Ice Punch does huge damage, but it doesn't quite get the KO there. So at this point, I'm going to shield the Ancient Power, commit to a full farm down, and I realized if they come back in with Credilli, I could probably still get the KO with the Wild Charge, so I full send it, but they don't. Instead, it's a Dugong that near enough one-shots from full health. Now at this point, Tangrowth should be fine. We can tank 2 Rock Tombs, not super comfortably, but we can tank it nonetheless. And just to play it safe, I'm going to commit to the Power Whip here. Power Whip will be enough damage to get the KO, and despite being double debuffed, a single Vine Whip will be taking out the Dugong, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Regieleki into Credilli. So, of course, not a great matchup for me. I will be safe swapping straight away into Regidrago. I did use Regidrago as the safe swap, and here the opponent's actually running Bullet Seed. So, at this point, of course, I'm resisting the fast move damage. Rock Tomb is going to debuff my attack. They then come in with a Bastiodon. How on earth does this team make any sense? Either way, we are going to go for a Dragon Energy. Unfortunately, having been debuffed, and of course, that is resist damage, it really does not do much. But I'm hoping what I can do, throw a second Dragon Energy, and then bank a third one, swap out, clear the debuff, of course, and the opponent also throws on poor timing, so we get a full Volt Switch in for free. They fire off the Stone Edge. I go for 2 Volt Switches, and I farm up to back-to-back Thunder Cages. Thunder Cage is going to grab a shield. It also drops their defense there, meaning this second Thunder Cage is definitely going to get the KO if they no shield, which they do. Now remember, of course, we did bank a move on the Regidrago. They come back in with Credilli, and I can force a CMP tie. Thunder Cage, once again, going to debuff the opponent's defense there, and of course, it is going to connect. The opponent does not need to shield that, but we can, of course, let the Rock Tomb go through. They actually undercharge that, getting slightly more farms, so instead of giving them extra energy, I'm actually going to come in straight away with the Lugia, shield up the Rock Tomb, and their final Pokemon is a Dusclops. So unfortunately, Lugia not having a great time into this team, but we're able to full send an Aeroblast. Remember, of course, I had just been debuffed there, so it doesn't quite get the KO, but the opponent, not on Poltergeist, they actually go for Ice Punch there, which is quite an interesting play, but either way, Fly grabs the final shield. Now I can come in, snipe with the Regidrago, Dragon Energy gets the KO there, and actually, I'm able to live one more Bullet Seed, get the Dragon Breath farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to the opponent there. Into the next battle, I see Shadow Drapion in the lead. A very problematic Pokemon for me to deal with. Honestly, there aren't too many Poison-type Pokemon in this meta, and a lot of them as well are going to be like a Tentacruel or something where we've actually got super effective damage on the entire team anyway, so it's not that bad for me. But unfortunately, Shadow Drapion resisting the Confusion damage on the Tapu Lele, but they do randomly go for an Aqua Tail this time around. They're already debuffed, so I'm able to survive that, reach a second Wild Bolt Storm, and put them into range where Tapu Koko can come in. We don't have to shield anything here, as of course they are double debuffed. We know they're not on Sludge Bomb, and we can commit to a full Volt Switch farm down. Now they do reach another Charge Sweep, but that's fine with me. Of course they are debuffed. This time they do go for the Aqua Tail, which is going to hit for neutral. They are now going to come in with a Florigist, so I'm going to go straight for Nature's Madness, debuff their defense, and then swap into my Tapu Lele. The opponent is going to farm up to a potential Moonblast, so I'm going to shield this, respect the damage. It is just a Chilling Water bait, unfortunately, but they come in with Galarian Moltres. Now at this point, Nature's Madness is not going to do too much damage since I am debuffed, but it does force the opponent to throw some energy. So of course, Fly gets the KO there. We can come in with a Tapu Koko, commit to a full farm down, coming out with another Charge Move loaded, and of course, up against the Florigist from this range, it will be enough damage to get the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Donphan into Pangoro. Of course, I've got 2 Flying-type Pokemon with actual Flying-type fast moves. I'm going to say swap into Altaria, and unfortunately, this is where Altaria is going to be held slightly back up against other Dragon-type Pokemon. It is now going to struggle as we are taking super effective damage from those Dragon Breaths, but only dealing neutral damage with the Pex and the Sky Attacks. However, I can reach a second Sky Attack before Goodra does fully farm us down. Sky Attack gets them very low, to the point where actually just a single Mud Slap probably probably gets the KO. At this point, I'm going to no-shield my Don Fan. Octail is going to hit for super effective damage, but I'm going to save both shields for my Shadow Talonflame. They come in with a Turtonator, a Pokemon that would double resist the Incinerate damage, but Peck hitting for neutral. Brave Bird gets the one-shot there, and at this point, the opponent still has a shield, but it doesn't really matter. They've got a ton of energy. I can just double shield. The opponent recognizing there's nothing they can do, so they just concede the match. So, GG's up on there into the next battle, and we're going to see a Shadow Gyarados in the lead. So I'm going to stay in this matchup here. Going to swap out after 4 Poison Stings, looking to catch an Aqua Tail. Able to successfully catch it onto the Sea King there, before they come in with a Fury Cutter, Shadow Sizzle. I'm going straight for Drill Run. Drill Run going to hit for neutral damage, and it does grab a shield. Now, the opponent is going to fire off possibly a Trailblaze here, looking to boost up their attack stat, getting the one-shot as well. But, of course, whilst Beedrill would very much struggle up against a Bullet Punch Sizzle, we are actually resisting the fast move damage. We go for Drill Run, it gets the KO there, and the opponent's going to come in with a Digger's Beast. So I swap into Shadow Starmie. They come back in with the Shadow Gyarados, but you're going to see these Psywaves are absolutely shredding through the Gyarados. I grab the final shield there. The opponent is not going to be able to reach back-to-back charge moves here, and not only that, I can shield the Aqua Tail. I come out with a Surf already loaded. Now, the opponent does have a charge move on Digger's Beast, and of course, from this range, Fire Punch definitely gets the KO there. I look to overfarm, I actually end up throwing on poor timing there, which is unfortunate, but Surf does huge damage. We can come back in with that Shadow Beedrill, just 1 Poison Sting away from the Exeter. We get the KO, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Spidops into Dunsparce. So this is not a great matchup for me since I'm not running counter as the fast move. I say swap into Ariados and instantly met with a Talonflame, but I do have some coverage here. We can go for Cross Poisons. Unfortunately, not getting a boost on the first attempt, but we can go for a second Cross Poison. Cross Poison, number 2, grabs a shield, and here you can see I lag. I should have easily reached a third Cross Poison, but for whatever reason, we lag by 1 turn, and then we don't get damage registration error either, and so unfortunately, I should have grabbed both shields there, but I don't do that. But they're now going to swap out, realizing they probably can't tank 2 Volt Switches, so we go straight for a Lunge. Lunge drops their attack, and now we come back in with the Spidops. Of course, I have to no-shield this. Weather Ball is going to hit for super effective damage, but it is non-stab and debuffed. Now we can fire off a Lunge. Lunge from this range is going to get the KO, and let's see what they want to do. They come back in with that Dunsparce. The opponent gonna overfarm here, so I'm actually gonna go for a Rock Tomb, hoping this would be a CMP tie, which it is, and Rock Tomb gonna do slightly more damage than a Lunge in neutral situations. They fire off the Rock side. We come in with Galvantula. They swap back into Talonflame, clearing the debuff, but allow me to get the full farm down without taking any damage from the Incinerate. At this point, we've got back-to-back charge moves. The opponent doesn't have back-to-back charge moves, so of course I can fire off 2 discharges. First one grabs the final shield, and despite that lag there, costing Ariados reaching a 3rd charge move, I'm able to fight back, and I'm able to take that game. Let's go into the first battle, leading Larvesta into Nidoqueen. So, of course, I've got 2 better answers in the back. I'm going to be safe swapping into Galissapod, and unfortunately hard punished by Dedenne. Now, I'm going to go straight for Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet is going to grab a shield advantage. That's probably the best I can get out of this matchup. So, at this point, I'm just going to no-shield. Parabolic Charge gets the KO. It also boosts up the defense, of course. And now I'm going to come in with Larvesta. Now, Larvesta, not exactly a bulky Pokemon, but I will no-shield it. I'm hoping, since they've got Nidoqueen in the lead, maybe they've got a second Pokemon weak to the ice typing in the back. So at this point, we fire off a Flame Wheel. Flame Wheel does decent damage considering they are already double boosted in their defense, and in committing to a farm down, I reach another Flame Wheel. So I grab the final shield. We come in with the Frostmoth. Of course, I'm going to shield here, and the opponent, unfortunately, not double weak to the ice typing. They are weak to Bug. However, unfortunately, I'm not running Signal Beam or Bug Buzz or whatever the charge move is. That is the Bug typing for this Pokemon. But either way, we full send the Hurricane. Hurricane gets the one shot there as we win CMP. They come back in with the Nidoqueen, and as it's a non-shadow, they're committing to the Stone Edge, but Icy Wind outpaces them. We get the farm down up against the Dene, and I'm able to take that game. But GG's to opponent there into next battle, and the awkward leads continue. We're going to say swap into our Barabaracle, and the opponent comes in with a Shadow Annihilate. Now, we do have Grass Knot full coverage. If we had Cross Chop and Stone Edge, that would be an absolute nightmare, but we've actually put them into Ember farm down range. And also, the opponent only going to reach a single charge move, so Rage Fist going to boost up their attack stat. That's fine, I can tank it, so I'm going to no shield this, go for the Ember farm down. I should now be able to outpace this for Alligator to that first charge move. So I do overfarm just slightly here. We fire off the Fly, but Fly not going to deal that much damage, and again, there's just no way for me to fast food farm them down here, so I need to stay in this matchup. We overfarm, but I actually lose CMP. I didn't realize this, but Fletchinder going to be losing CMP up against for Alligator, at least with the Ivy spread that I've got. We go for Fly, but they no shield. I go for a slight undercharge there, looking to go for a full farm down. Don't really know why I did that, because they just swap out, but their final Pokemon is Credilli, and this is looking perfect for me. Of course, I do have to be wary of a potential catch, but I can just soak up this damage so comfortably. They're going to go for Rock Tombs. I don't really care. I've still got a Fletchinder in the back, so eventually when my Switch Clock does come up, when I get to 100 energy, I will just swap out. I will clear the debuff, and then we can unload 2 Gyro Balls. So Rock Tomb going to debuff me once again. We swap out. We clear the debuff there. I wait one turn just to make sure the opponent doesn't make a catch onto for Alligator, and then again, I am going to wait one turn here just to ensure they don't, and we go straight for Gyro Ball number 2. Gyro Ball is going to connect. It gets the one shot. One more Psycho Cut will eventually take out for Alligator, and I'm able to take that game. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Electrode into Credilli. So, of course, not a great matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into my Hisuian Quillfish, and I will still outpace them to that first charge. With presumably the opponent going to stay in and look to debuff me with a Rock Tomb, and the opponent surprisingly does no shield that first Dark Pulse. But anyways, Rock Tomb gonna debuff my attack stat. The opponent then gonna make a very nice catch there, catching a resisted debuffed Dark Pulse onto Shadow Primate, but we are still gonna deal decent damage there. We swap back into Electrode, and I'm gonna farm up to the Wild Charge and then bait with a Swift. Honestly, from this range, Swift probably gets the KO anyways, and the opponent gonna throw on CMP here. However, I actually don't mind using my shield, as I can either grab the final shield from the opponent or just take out the Shadow Primate. So Swift is going to get the KO there. The opponent likely to come back in with that Credilli, and they will do exactly that. At this point, I'm going to no-shield this. They have overfarmed just a little bit here, so we're going to wait out our Switch Clock and come in with the Cleavor. I'm going to look to go for a full Fury Cutter farm down, but the opponent going to get to a Rock Tomb, so I do swap out. I make that catch onto Quillfish. Rock Tomb gets the KO, and the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a shiny Shadow Charizard, and this game is absolutely over. Of course, we've got Rockside. Rockside get a hit for double super effective damage. We're already at back-to-back, so of course, they can no longer shield. Rockside gets the one shot. We can Fury Cutter farm them down, so the opponent can seize the match at literally 1 HP, and I'm able to take that game. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Druddigon into Bronzong. So not the best matchup for me, but we do have access to Night Slash, so I'm going to stay in, fire off a Night Slash immediately, and then I will be swapping into my Shadow Metang. Night Slash able to connect, and now with the Fury Cutter damage, we get them into the yellow health range. Of course, they've got access to payback. I shield, and they do full send. The opponent is actually still going to stay in this matchup, so potentially they don't really have a great response to Metang in the back, which means hopefully Metagross is also going to have a great time. So at this point, get a no shield, they full send the payback, but I've put them into range where Metagross can come in and go for a fully resisted Bullet Punch farm down before they even reach a Psyshock. So here, of course, we do have an energy advantage. The opponent is going to come in with a Glalie, which is also great to see that this Pokemon has some play in this meta. This Pokemon, in pretty much any other meta, is completely useless, but actually seeming to be pretty common in this meta. However, unfortunately for them, I can shield once and then go for a full farm down. So the opponent swaps out into their final Pokemon, and Oranguru. This Pokemon is supposed to be the top dog of this meta, but Meteor Mash gets the one shot. We can Bullet Punch farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. I see Fearow in the lead, of course. Not a great matchup for me once again. We say swap into Slowking, and we're met with a Gastrodon. Now, I'm hoping this isn't going to be a double Mud Slap team here, but the opponent is going to fire off the charge move, not allowing me to reach a second Psyshock. They full send the Water Pulse, which they needed to do, otherwise we would live a Body Slam and get to a second move. But now we come back in with the Appleton. Unfortunately, haven't quite put them into farm down range before they will reach back-to-back charge moves here. So they fire off the first first body slam doesn't deal too much damage, but with the mud slaps, that is actually starting to add up here. They do reach a second body slam just before we farm them down. I've got a lot of energy, so I'm just going straight for Outrage. Outrage does huge damage, and again, able to snipe with the confusion damage from Slowbro, but their final Pokemon is going to be a second Mud Slapper. Now, of course, we do have an energy advantage. We fire off that first Brutal Swing. The opponent is going to go for a charge move. Of course, I'm going to shield as I do now have energy for the Brutal Swing. I'm going to look to overfarm just slightly here. Brutal Swing is going to actually not be shielded by the opponent. That was the correct play. However, they then make a huge mistake. They fire off a charge move. They should commit to the full fast move, farm down, and in throwing there, they actually allow a simultaneous KO, and I'm able to tie that game there. I was about to say able to take that game. Nope, that was definitely a tie, but still, we will take it considering that was a full hard counter team. So going into the first battle, leading Bombardier into Greninja. Now, this is a bit of an awkward matchup for me. Of course, Greninja going to be very dominant into Armourouge, so I don't really want to swap out of this matchup. So I'm actually just going to play out the zero shield scenario. I can tank a Hydro Cannon. However, I don't think the opponent is going to be able to tank a Fly. I'm actually going to bait with a Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to be shielded, and here, even though I did mention I was just going to play out the zero shield scenario, I'm actually going to swap out of this matchup, as I assume the opponent will chip with a Hydro Cannon, which they do, but of course they were debuffed there, so that's fine with me. We're now going to see a Ferrothorn coming in, and this is amazing for my Armourouge. Of course, we connect with the Drill Run. Doesn't do too much damage there, but it does put them into just 2 Incinerate farm down range, meaning we get the full farm down. We don't even have to tank a Power Whip, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Talonflame. At this point, going to go straight for Side Shock here. Side Shock going to do big damage, and now the opponent is going to farm up to 100 energy. I'm going to shield this. I expect the opponent to throw straight away, so I'm actually going to swap out, catch the next charge move onto Bombardier, and I believe I do have a ton of energy on the Armourouge. We've actually got 100. We go over that, but it doesn't really matter. We can go for Flame Charge here. Flame Charge grabs the final shield. We can throw yet another Flame Charge. Flame Charge certainly going to get the KO right now, and now, of course, I'm double boosted. Incinerate takes out the Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there into the final battle of this video. Going to lead into Turtonator, so we're going to stay in this matchup once again on Incinerate. So I will be swapping out, trying to make the catch. This time does not work out for me. However, they're going to stay in with the Turtonator. So, going to go for a Body Slam. Body Slam is going to be no-shielded, and already we got the Turtonator very low. At this point, they farmed up to back-to-back Brutal Swings, so I will now shield this as they fire off the next one, but I can outpace to another Body Slam. So Body Slam going to be coming through here. Body Slam going to be shielded, but now we can reach, well, actually, very nice play on the opponent's end as they snipe me with the Dugong, but I'm reading this is the same team we just lost to a few battles ago, so this time, we're not playing it the same way. We full send the Wild Charge, we get the KO, and it is the same team. And now, of course, we're going to full send another Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to be shielded this time around here. The opponent is going to overfarm just a little bit here. I believe they're one away from a second Avalanche, which we don't quite have the energy for a Shadow Ball. However, I'm predicting the opponent is going to swap out straight away. Of course, Zoroark going to win CMP, so we just wait to see the typing icon in the top right corner. And as a result, Foul Play gets the KO. I can now outpace them. Of course, Foul Play from this range should take them out. But you know what? We can go for Shadow Ball. It easily gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So there we go, we actually went 5-0 on our final set before hitting Legend. Gonna get an excellent throw on the Vullaby, and there you go, hitting Legend 30-42 Elo. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.